He's a good listener.
He's a good listener.
I go, this is what the left hated me, that I went to the White House and talked to him and then did not lie and say he was a monster in the White House. I just said it's the truth.
He's not a...
You got to meet him, you got to deal with him on a personal level.
And then you go, who is it? It reminds me, and I love Howard Stern. It's like Howard in person is a genuinely kind, wonderful guy, but he gets on the air and I don't know what happens. I always said, I don't even know when people hear this. He was talking about how to do the roads. I'm a road freak about potholes around my neighborhood in LA. We don't take care of our roads. It's just one of these things. And he was, to fix the roads in DC, you got to get the underlayment first, get the sidewalks done. And he went off and he was one of those.
You know what's wild? We live in an era where meeting someone in person has become an act of rebellion. Think about it. When Tim Allen sat down with Bill Maher on Club Random and started talking about his actual face-to-face encounters with Donald Trump, he wasn't just sharing anecdotes. He was committing what some corners of the media consider borderline heresy. Because here's the thing, in today's political circus, you're supposed to stick to the script, repeat the talking points, and never ever admit that the villain of the story might actually be more complicated than the cartoonish monster everyone's been screaming about for the past 8 years. But Allen did it anyway, and honestly, it's about time someone with a platform had the guts to say what millions of people have been thinking all along. If you're tired of the same old recycled narratives and want to see more honest conversations like this, do me a favor and smash that subscribe button right now, because we're just getting started.
Genuinely a wonderful person, and he was more, this is I think the second to last year, the last year of The Apprentice. And he was thinking of moving to Los Angeles and being a movie producer. And he was talking about movies. He said,
Really?
He said, I really like the film business. More than that, the guy's addicted to comedy. He was so, I was, killing at the table, and he's going, what a gift to do that. He's laughing about this and that.
Let's cut straight to the heart of what Allen said, because it's something that should make every single person in legacy media incredibly uncomfortable. He described Trump as a good listener, not just polite, not just present in the room, but genuinely engaged and attentive. Allen painted a picture of someone who, when you sit across from him, actually hears what you're saying and responds thoughtfully instead of just waiting for his turn to talk. Now, compare that image to the one you've been fed for years. The reckless tyrant, the narcissistic blowhard, the guy who supposedly can't stop interrupting and talking over everyone. It's almost like two completely different people, isn't it? And here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to acknowledge. One of these versions is based on secondhand outrage and carefully edited clips designed to confirm biases. The other comes from people who actually sat in the room with the man. Which one do you think is more reliable? Allen went even further and made a comparison that's going to sting for some people. He said Trump reminds him of Howard Stern, genuinely kind and wonderful in person, but something changes when the cameras turn on or when he's performing for an audience. And you know what? That's actually a fascinating observation, because it raises a question nobody seems willing to ask. How much of what we see in public is performance? And how much of what happens behind closed doors is the real person? The media has spent years treating Trump's public persona as the definitive version of who he is, but what if that's the equivalent of judging an actor entirely by their most controversial role? What if the person in private meetings, the one who sits down and talks about fixing potholes and infrastructure with genuine enthusiasm, is actually closer to the truth than the caricature we've been sold? And speaking of infrastructure, this is where things get really interesting. Allen described how Trump became almost obsessed when talking about fixing roads in Washington, D.C., diving into details about underlayment, sidewalks, and asphalt like a contractor surveying a broken job site. Most politicians would gloss over something like that with vague promises and poll-tested sound bites. Trump apparently gets animated about it, not because it's politically advantageous, but because he genuinely sees a problem that needs fixing and can't help himself from wanting to solve it. That's not the behavior of someone playing a character. That's someone wired to build and repair things, someone who looks at broken systems the same way a mechanic looks at a faulty engine. It's almost compulsive, this need to step in and make things work again.
You gotta meet him, you gotta deal with him on a personal level.
And then you go, who is it? It reminds me, and I love Howard Stern. It's like Howard in person is a genuinely kind, wonderful guy, but he gets on the air and I don't know what happens. I always said, if I was the adult in the room, I would take Donald's phone away from him and get him involved in infrastructure. Here, he would, I don't even know when people hear this. He was talking about how to do the roads. I'm a road freak about potholes around my neighborhood in LA. We don't take care of our roads. It's just one of these things. And he was, to fix the roads in DC, you got to get the underlayment first, get the sidewalks done. And he went off and he was one of those news things where he's talking about how quickly he could get the road done quickly in Washington, D.C. We don't need the underlayment, but then asphalt on top of this. I'm going.
Here's what the media consistently misses, and Allen spelled it out perfectly. Trump doesn't see problems as abstract political talking points to be debated endlessly on cable news. He sees them as mechanical failures that demand immediate attention and practical solutions. Whether it's crumbling roads, bloated government contracts, or economic inefficiency, Trump apparently approaches everything with the same mindset. Diagnose what's broken, figure out how to fix it, and get it done as quickly and efficiently as possible. That's not the thinking of a traditional politician who's more concerned with optics and spin than actual results. That's a builder's mentality, someone who measures success by tangible outcomes rather than favorable headlines. And let's talk about those bloated contracts for a second, because this is where Trump's background in business really shows through in ways that drive the political establishment absolutely insane. Allen recalled how Trump would look at public projects with massive price tags attached and immediately question why they cost so much, not in a vague philosophical way, but breaking it down in practical terms, pointing out that the work being discussed wasn't nearly as complicated as it was being made out to be, and certainly didn't justify the astronomical figures being thrown around. He'd argue the job could be done faster and for far less money with basic competence and efficiency.
That's brilliant. It's not $800 million. I could do this stuff for $6 million tomorrow, and we will get it done.
There's almost nothing he surveys that he doesn't want to fix, whether it's the Kennedy Center, and look, believe me, I am not on the page with a lot of his fixes.
I get it.
But like, he looks at Venezuela, we got to fix that.
Fix it.
No ballroom, we got to fix that. Asphalt, we got to, there's just nothing that he doesn't want to personally. He does have enormous energy. You got to give him that.
To someone like Trump, who spent decades managing construction projects and negotiating deals, the waste and bureaucratic bloat in government spending isn't just frustrating. It's almost offensive. He sees the markup, the inefficiency, the unnecessary layers of contractors and consultants, and his instinct is to cut through all of it and demand answers. Why does this cost $800 million when it could be done for $6 million? That's not a rhetorical question for him. He actually wants to know, and he wants it fixed. Now, Bill Maher jumped in with something even more provocative, and this is guaranteed to set off alarm bells in certain newsrooms. Maher said that whatever else you might think about Trump, one thing you absolutely cannot accuse him of is being a phony. What you see is what you get. There's no focus grouped persona, no carefully rehearsed talking points designed to appeal to the broadest possible demographic.
Whatever you think of the policy and him as a person, just as a politician, just understanding that always lean in to being more who you are. The people are not savvy about issues, but they smell a phony a mile away. And that kind of shit, nobody else does it. You know, there's a couple of times when, look, I've been his biggest critic.
Trump doesn't hide behind polished language or pretend to be something he's not. He's unapologetically himself all the time, whether that makes people comfortable or not. And in a political landscape absolutely drowning in manufactured authenticity and carefully calculated image management, that's become a kind of superpower. Most politicians spend their entire careers trying to be everything to everyone, shifting positions depending on who's in the room, deflecting and dodging whenever they're pressed on anything controversial. Trump just puts it all out there, completely unfiltered, and lets the chips fall where they may. Maher's point cuts deeper than people want to admit. In a world where every major politician has been professionally trained to avoid saying anything that might alienate potential voters, being genuinely real has become almost revolutionary. People can sense authenticity or the lack of it from a mile away. They might not be policy experts, they might not follow every legislative detail, but they absolutely know when someone's feeding them rehearsed nonsense versus speaking from actual conviction. And that's precisely why Trump resonates with so many people, and why his critics struggle to land effective attacks on his authenticity.
I'm not going to pre-hate anything. And then the first week I said, well, there's lots of things I hate, because I do. Okay, there's some things I don't hate also, but the way he can do that and sometimes kind of make me go, oh man, I gotta give it up.
You can call him reckless, you can call him divisive, you can disagree with every single thing he says, but you can't credibly argue that he's putting on an act. The man is incapable of being anyone other than exactly who he is, and in modern politics, that's become a rare and valuable currency. Maher also made a commitment at the start of Trump's second term that should have been the baseline for every commentator, but somehow wasn't. He promised he wouldn't pre-hate anything. He'd judge the administration on what it actually did, not on predictions, hysteria, or partisan reflexes. But watch what happened instead. Before Trump could even announce policies or make decisions, the criticism machine was already running at full speed. Headlines were written, commentary was locked and loaded, and the outrage was delivered on schedule regardless of what was actually happening. It's absurd when you think about it. How do you criticize ideas that haven't even been proposed yet? How do you attack policies that haven't been rolled out? The answer is simple. You don't care about the policies. You've already decided the outcome before the story begins. That's not journalism or analysis. That's just automatic hostility dressed up as commentary, and it exposes a fundamental bias that undermines any claim to credibility.
This is an aerial picture of your house. If during our withdrawal, one American is hurt, just know I know where you live. I was like, oh, can we just play the music now? Because I don't care, it's Donald Trump and he's the worst person ever, blah, blah, blah. I fucking love that. Mm-hmm. One time they were doing something was going on with, and he said, you know what? When you come after New York, you got to go through me. It's like, oh, hometown boy. You know, he has those moments that no other politician has. And the Democrats have to find that guy.
Here's something else that drives Maher's point home. Trump is the kind of figure who means exactly what he says and follows through without apology. Once he's convinced of a position, he doesn't waffle, he doesn't hedge, and he certainly doesn't apologize to make critics comfortable. He locks in on the objective and pushes forward until it's done. That kind of unapologetic decisiveness is vanishingly rare in modern politics, where most leaders spend more time explaining themselves than actually accomplishing anything. For Trump's supporters, this is exactly why they trusted him with their votes. They weren't looking for someone who could deliver eloquent speeches or navigate diplomatic niceties with perfect grace. They wanted someone who projected strength, clarity, and resolve. Someone who wouldn't back down or equivocate when the pressure mounted. On the international stage especially, many believed Trump was the only leader willing to put America's interests first without hesitation, embarrassment, or endless apologies. Whether you agree with his methods or not, you can't deny that he operates with a level of confidence and conviction that makes other politicians look indecisive by comparison.
One time they were doing something was going on with, and he said, you know what? When you come after New York, you got to go through me. It's like, oh, hometown boy. You know, he has those moments that no other politician has. And the Democrats have to find that guy.
They need a message, and then you find, you find the messenger. No, but that's how it worked for Trump.
That's the worst thing. The Democrats always say, message, message. Yeah, first of all, they did and they don't like it. Second of all, they don't give a shit. It's not about the message. Trump changes his message from day to day. Tariffs everywhere, tariffs nowhere.
Those are policy
It doesn't matter. But they don't care about policy. They don't understand it. His message is, I'm me, I'm strong, and I'm daddy. You know, they're on this daddy thing, you know, and people want a daddy. You know, Tucker Carlson, that whole thing, you've heard that thing about daddy came home and you need a spanking. And I'm like, this is getting a little weird, Mrs. Robinson. You know, daddy, but you know what? That's what works, and that's what people respond to.
Here's where Maher drops a bomb that's going to make a lot of Democrats deeply uncomfortable. He argued that the party desperately needs its own version of Trump, not a carbon copy in style or ideology, but a singular dominant figure capable of energizing the base and commanding attention the way Trump does for Republicans. And honestly, he might be onto something. Trump functions as a gravitational force for his party, someone supporters rally around with intense loyalty and unity. The Democrats, by contrast, are scattered across multiple personalities with niche audiences, competing messages, and limited reach. Nobody truly owns the room or defines the party's identity in a way that cuts through the noise and captures widespread attention. Without a central leader who can move crowds, dominate media cycles, and project unshakable confidence, the party struggles to generate real momentum. They're organized on paper but divided in spirit, and that's a fundamental problem in an era where charisma and narrative drive politics as much as politics policy ever did. Maher was brutally blunt about the current Democratic bench. He said neither Kamala Harris nor Tim Walz has the capacity or raw charisma needed to match Trump head-to-head. And look, that's not about resumes or credentials. It's about presence, command, and the ability to energize people beyond your core supporters. Leadership at the national level requires more than competence. It requires force of personality, the kind that makes people sit up and pay attention even when they disagree with you. Maher's been openly critical of Trump on plenty of issues, but he separates personal objections from political reality. He acknowledges that Trump, for all his flaws, brings clarity, decisiveness, and strength to leadership in ways few others currently can. Compared to a field of cautious, scripted politicians who seem terrified of making waves, Trump stands out as the most commanding option available. You don't have to love everything he does to recognize that simple fact.
Don't know the issues. They don't know the facts.
I
and
agree.
they have no interest in learning about them. They're like an animal. They're instinctive. Like, I smell fear or I smell alpha. And they smell alpha. And Democrats have to come up with an alpha. And it's not Tim Walz.
No, probably not.
And it's not the other Tim who ran.
Kane?
Tim Kane. These are not alphas. It's like this thing of like, let's get a woman and then a docile man who's in every commercial where he's the asshole while mom takes care of business. That's not a message that makes the tribe go, who is strong? Who's strong? Who's strong?
So here's what we're left with after this conversation between Maher and Allen. A picture of Trump that the media rarely presents and actively works to suppress. Authentic, decisive, instinctively focused on fixing what's broken, and backed by people who've actually spent time with him rather than relying on secondhand narratives. He's not perfect, nobody's claiming that, but his clarity, confidence, and leadership presence set him apart from a fragmented opposition that can't seem to find a unifying message or figure. For now, he remains the most compelling and commanding presence on the national stage, and that reality is driving a lot of people absolutely crazy because it doesn't fit the script they've been pushing for years. The real question is how long the media can maintain narratives that crumble the moment anyone with firsthand experience speaks up. When people who've sat across from Trump describe someone completely different from the caricature we've been sold, at what point does the disconnect become too obvious to ignore? How much of the public narrative is built on actual observation versus recycled outrage and political convenience? These are uncomfortable questions, and they deserve honest answers instead of the same tired talking points. If this conversation got you thinking, hit that like button and drop a comment below with your take. Do you trust people who've met Trump in person, or do you think the media portrayal is more accurate? Let's hear it. And if you want more content that challenges the mainstream narrative instead of just repeating it, subscribe to this channel because we're not slowing down anytime soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.